You're listening to the best of ITW, brought to you by Pop Guide and Wikileaf.
The new and deadly menace lurking behind closed doors. Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
On this episode, ITW welcomes Ska-Core pioneers Eddie and George Casillas of the Voodoo Glow Skulls.
I think the first night we were there was the first one we did. And on the list it is Voodoo Glow Skulls. That was the first
one we did. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a great one. George and Eddie came out.
Yeah,
and that was actually like a pretty cool talk because, like, they brought up a lot of stuff that like I didn't even know about.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Yeah, and they're so nice. They were so nice. To like
Best
so
dudes
friendly.
Ever. Best dudes ever.
Yeah,
and they're brothers, but they really treat us all like family. So it's cool, man.
And
and I think part of that, maybe just a quick backstory on how we connect Voodoo Glow Skulls to you. Like for you to hear stuff from them that you'd never heard before.
Kinda cool.
I mean, you're with those guys all the time.
Yeah, 5 years now.
Has it been 5 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So having them out was cool, and I just like just hearing their perspective on California and LA and the whole on the cannabis scene. You know what I mean? Because like I consider them like. Because in the 90s, especially in the 90s, when Voodoo was just smashing the
planet. The Godfathers of Ska-Core, for those who don't know who Voodoo Glow Skulls are.
And as far as like kind of cannabis smokers bands, like Voodoo's one of them.
Yeah, I can remember
Hill, Voodoo. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like they always were kind of pushing the lifestyle.
Yeah, I can remember the story in the interview when they were talking about. I think it was Epitaph was like, who do you want your big full page ad with? And they're like, High Times. Like, fucking High Times. Like, yeah, dude, High Times. Right? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All good, dude. We're good.
They're amazing. Even like our icon, the Voodoo Man character, he's got blood red eyes because he's stoned.
And that mask was made by Michael Keaton, Batman mask maker or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Somebody, I forget how they told me they met him, but they knew the guy that made the Batman masks or something like that. And they and he made that mask for them, and it's the same one still. It's been repaired a couple times, but it's pretty rad. Our Voodoo Man comes out on stage wearing it, and when we played in Hamilton, Ben was the Voodoo Man that night. He wore the mask and came out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. And we had dinner. That was fine. So that was
dude. We had dinner at your house.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Made vegan spaghetti, I think, with zucchini noodles.
Some really nice grilled vegetables.
But that's wild. So it's been 5. That was when me and Haley first got. So 5 years. Yeah. And you've been so embraced by their fans.
Dude, I can't believe it. Like I definitely thought I was going to get a lot more hate than I did.
Tough shoes to fill, right?
Dude. I fucking love Frank, dude.
Yeah.
And I remember the biggest hater I had, which is shocking because I didn't really get that many haters. There was a girl in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the whole time we're playing, I'd look over and she's at the front of the stage left, and she's watching, and she's just like, every time she'd look at me, she had her arms crossed, and she's just shaking her head like, nope. And I just kept smiling at her. And then the show ended, and then after the show, she was waiting and trying to talk to the guys in the band and get them to sign something. And I saw her, and she would greet the band or whatever she was doing. And then I was like, I looked at her and I just go, hey, like that. And then she was like, she's like, I don't know about you. And then I looked at her.
Did you take that to heart?
No, I just looked at her and I talked to her about it. I go, come on, what's the big deal? And she goes, I've been into these guys for a really long time. And she kind of smiled, and I go, how old are you? And I forgot how old she said she was, but I was like, I've been into them way longer. And then she was like, oh,
yeah,
I get it. And I go, yeah, I fucking love this band.
Yeah.
I get to do this now. And she was like, oh, that's cool. And then she talked to me and the ice broke, you know what I mean? Like, we're both fans, like how cool is that? Like, how can you hate on that? Yeah. And I got really embraced. Another thing that helped me is
the mystery of the outfit, I think maybe.
The mask.
Yeah.
And Eddie and George both told me when I got in the band, they're like, hey dude, like, so the previous vocalist, he wore, the previous singer, Frank, their brother wore a mask. And they're like, we want you to wear your own mask. But and develop your own character. But they're like, don't let them hate you before they hear you. Like, there's going to be a lot of people out there on the road that don't know we have a new singer, that didn't hear about it. And it was kind of cool. I'd wear the mask and I would notice it. Like, halfway through the set, I'd take it off and I'd see people just be like, what the fuck? Like, in the crowd. So it's kind of cool. And like, dude, you can't be mad. You've been running in a circle for like 4 songs already or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
And it sounds incredible, man. You sound
Thank
great.
you very much.
You know, it's really that. sincerely.
And I put a record out with the band since
you put
we
a
did
record
this episode.
Yeah.
What's the record called again?
Live in the Apocalypse. It's a little snapshot of the pandemic. And so the record, I guess, would be like, Voodoo has always talked about some social issues and different things, but not as much as on this album.
Yeah.
And
did you have much to do with that, or was that more?
They were really conscious about actually like trying to say something about what was going on in the world. But obviously that's kind of where I come from too, writing wise. So it was a perfect fit, you know?
Yeah.
And I had to find a balance between singing and writing in the traditional Voodoo style and then mine. So that was a challenge, but it's cool, man.
When you just got to like your break of COVID, I guess, was you got to tour that album a bit, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we finally like just did our first tour since everything shut down. We did a West Coast tour, and it was fucking fantastic. It's definitely different, you know. Like I was telling Bubs, you hide out after the show and before the show.
Yeah,
you can't hang.
Yeah, that's we played a few shows, and that's exactly how I've been too.
Yeah, we just stay in our little rig by ourselves.
Yeah,
you know, the band's all isolate.
Yeah, I had to leave the venue altogether. It wasn't so much that I don't think really afraid, because I know most of the people that are, you know, are kind of reasonable about that, all of that. You know, I don't want to, you know, get in the middle of that, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I knew most people were like-minded and probably vaccinated and things like that, but it was just more so like the amount of people, the amount of stimulus, like you know.
Oh,
like
I wasn't ready for it, man.
Yeah.
It was like, definitely after being isolated.
Yeah.
The first couple fests we did, it definitely gave me some anxiety. I was like, whoa, fuck.
Yeah, it was wild.
The first one we did, the first one back for Voodoo, it was a while back. It was still kind of early to do a fest, but it was last summer in Arizona, because Arizona doesn't give a fuck, you know.
Yeah.
But we played it, and everybody was saying it like, "Oh, it's the punk rock spreader fest," you know.
Yeah.
But it was such a shock for me because we hadn't performed in a long time, and it was fucking so blazing hot. It's fucking Phoenix, Arizona in the summer, you know what I mean? And like, dude, we got out there. I forget how fucking hot it was on stage. Something stupid, like 110 degrees or something ridiculous, and the anxiety and the heat and fucking wearing that mask and the fucking whole, dude, it was, my head was just like, whoa. You know when you get all wobbly, you kind of get like a little tunnel vision at a point because you're so hot. And then when we were done, I ran behind the stage. I was so hot. I took all my shit off. And there was a tractor trailer like that was on the truck that brought stuff for the stage, and it was super shady under it, and I just fucking laid down under it because there's nobody could talk to me. I was alone, and I just lay down like a big X, like in this piece of shade, and just I had to like breathe, calm down. Fucking, it was like you're saying, it was just overstimulating.
Yeah,
myself.
it was crazy.
Incredibly like overwhelming, but it was dope, you know. I was just like you know, like, oh, here's something that happened to me that you guys don't know about. So, and it still doesn't bend all the way. I can't bend my finger down yet. We did Phoenix some months later. We did the Denver show, and it's epic, right in downtown Denver, right in the middle of all the buildings. It's really cool, dude, outdoor. And so we had a layover on our flight in Phoenix, and then our flight got canceled to Denver. There was no flights that get us there in time. So we rented cars and fucking just powered fucking like 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So we get there the next day and fucking, we're like, all right, everyone will have exactly 4 hours that you can sleep at the hotel. Then we'll bounce the fest. We'll get loaded in. We'll be late, but we'll get there on time. Merch will go up late, whatever. But we can sleep a little. And we're like, okay. All right, so me and Eddie Voodoo were roommates that night or day. So we go in the hotel, and we both take naps, and then we both wake up, And Eddie's like, oh, dude, we're a little bit late. We got to go, man. Like, we got to get ready and bounce. We'll get there on time if we bounce now. So he runs in the bathroom to go take a shower. And I grab my jeans and I put both feet in first. I was like in a hurry. And I yanked him up with my left hand. And it caught my fucking middle finger on my right hand, jeans, and it broke it. Like, snap. And I was all, So it's almost better now. It was like in a cast for a long time, the finger thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I got mad at myself, fuck. And then Eddie's in the shower like, what's going on out there? What the fuck? Like, I fucking broke my finger. What? I was like, I'll fucking be right back. I ran down to the rental car and I go racing to a pharmacy I found on my phone to go buy a splint. Yeah. And so I fucking run and I pull into the parking lot and I'm all, my finger's like pointed down. I'm all, I pull in, I open my door and a minivan just goes boom into my door.
Oh.
Takes the door out. Yeah. Yes, dude. And I'm all, fuck. I was so fucking out of my mind. And I get out and this lady gets out and she's like yelling at me and I was all, fucking hold on. And I went in the store and bought a splint, went outside, fucking made my finger straight, put it on. I was like, I was dying and this lady's yelling at me. And like, dude, I had to deal with the cops and with the rental company insurance. And I'm like, telling this cop, I'm all, that big fest in the middle of the fucking city. I go, I have to fucking play there. Like in a little bit, like, can we please do something to get me out of here faster? I'm all, what can I do? Can I call in this report? You know, and then I finally got out of there and our sax player, Eric, simultaneously got picked up by his homie, Josh, and then he was driving him and then he got rear-ended. They had to pull. Oh my God. Yeah, they had to pull over. While they're pull over, they got hit a second time.
What?
Yeah.
Are these all people going to the festival or just
our
wild?
sax? Oh, no, they were just people.
Random.
Yeah, and so then he was dealing with that. They finally got another ride, and then they had to come pick me up, and then they fucking scoop me up. We get to the festival grounds and have them just drop us off on the street, and we just start fucking running, and we had to run to we're like climbing up a fence, like, hey, where do we come in? And we had to go around some back gate. I got to the actual stage 3 minutes before our set.
Wow.
And the whole band's up there like, what the fuck, dude? You know, and I
you
was
couldn't get a hold of
it. Yeah,
anyone.
and I had my finger, I'm like, you know, like, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't call anybody because everything was moving so fast.
It was chaos, dude. It's so, yeah, dude. Yeah,
wow.
Dude. That happened in Denver, and the show fucking went off, and nobody slept. Everybody was like, oh, God, how are we going to do this? It was fucking rad, dude. It was such a good show.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that Voodoo Glow Skulls gets to keep going on, and I'm glad that you guys seem to persevered, and it's nice to see you happy and doing what you love again.
Man. We're already working on new shit.
Really?
Already working on the next one, man.
So the motivation is there, and I got goosebumps when you said that. That's so exciting. Cool. And yeah, so this is the ITW, Best of ITW with George and Eddie Casillas. Oh, no. Casillas, sorry.
Yeah.
Of Voodoo Glow Skulls. And it was awesome to meet those guys, and I can't wait to see them again. And yeah. You got
I can't wait to see them again, too.
I'm just jazzed to listen to it.
Yeah. Here you go. Here it is. And you said something kind of fun. You were saying something upstairs. You guys were saying about us, like you guys did.
Oh, about the Epitaph record?
With the Epitaph. When you guys like
when we signed Epitaph, and we were getting ready to release our first record, Feedman, that was on Epitaph. It wasn't our first album, but our first album on Epitaph. They asked us what we wanted to do with the advertising budget and some of the magazines we were interested in advertising our record in. And the first thing we told them was High Times.
Yeah.
So we got a custom ad.
They were kind of surprised because, you know, I'm sure no one ever asked them for that. And we did a whole ad in High Times for the Feedman album. It was awesome. It was a custom ad made by the artist Ken Stansberry, who drew the Feedman album cover. He did an ad, and it was the Voodoo Man basically taking a bong rip. And
that's so rad.
It said, "Skip the swag, go straight to the chronic." And it said, Voodoo Glow Skulls Feedman album available in stores now.
Yeah, wow. What year would that have been?
That would have been like 95.
95?
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, that was the first ad. We chose that to be the first promo ad. Was that, you know, it was was High Times magazine.
That's what we chose.
That's so dope.
That was where we put the first, advertising money was in High Times.
Yeah, wow.
To hit the demographic we wanted to hit.
Yeah. So you guys, let's get this back. So you guys, where did you guys grow up?
Riverside, California.
Riverside, yeah.
Born in West Hollywood, actually, kind of
born
down the street from here at Kaiser, where the Scientology building is at.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right across the street. Well, I was born there. My two brothers were born in East LA, or actually, my brother George.
I was born in West Hollywood. Yeah.
My older brother Frank was born in East LA, and we moved to Riverside.
Yeah.
As kids, and we're pretty much raised there since about 8 years old, 10 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
And the band started in the same house that you were raised in.
Yep, the band started in the same house.
That's cool.
In Riverside around 1988.
Our drummer AJ currently lives there now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we do actually practice there every once in a while.
So the house is still in the family, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we still own the house.
Yeah, we still own the house.
Oh wow. And that was your parents owned that house? That was just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was our parents' house.
Yeah. Yeah. And how old were you guys when you started the band? How when you guys started getting into punk rock and things like that?
Oh man, let's see. When I was a kid, this is how I actually got into punk. When I was a kid, I was sitting on the curb, and the Sick Boys, one of them had moved into our neighborhood, and he lived down the street.
That was Orange County punk rock gang.
So a lot of the Sick Boys were lingering around our neighborhood all the time because they would stay with him, and they'd walk back and forth from the liquor store in his house.
So we had punkers in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was just sitting on the curb.
Punk gangs.
I was into metal. We were into metal. We grew up going to Iron Maiden and Judas Priest concerts and Motley Crue, all those bands.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on the curb with my skateboard, and this guy walks up with the Walkman. I had a Walkman also. He says, "Hey kid, you like punk?" And I was like, "Huh?" Just kind of looked up at him like, "Huh?" And he goes, "Listen to this," and he hands me a tape. And I put it in my tape deck, and the first song that came on was "I'm Not a Loser" from Descendants.
Oh wow!
And
so we heard it from like a punk rock mixtape that was given to us by like a Mohawk punker.
And it had
awesome.
It had the Vandals, 7 Seconds, Uniform Choice.
And it had all like
Minor
the singles,
Threat.
all like the main songs.
Yeah,
like,
and then a few weeks later, we were at my cousin Juan's house in Orange County, and I started telling him about these bands, and he looked at me kind of like surprised. He took me up to his room, and he showed me all his albums, and it was all those bands.
And it turns out that he was a guitar player in a band called Just Because at that time. It was like an old Orange County hardcore band.
That toured with Minor Threat.
That used to play with like Doggy Style and like Minor Threat and all those kind of bands from the early hardcore scene. So it's just weird. We kind of got introduced because this real punk rocker guy like from a gang walked by and gave my brother a mixtape, and we heard Descendants' "I'm Not a Loser."
And then a few weeks later, one of our other cousins that lived in Moreno Valley, that's a neighboring city where we're actually almost the city where the shop's at, gave me a call and said, "Hey, 7 Seconds, Uniform Choice are playing in Riverside. Why don't you and your brother go meet me there?" So we went, and it was the Walk Together, Rock Together tour, and that was our first punk show, and that was the first experience that we had, with seeing a slam pit, all that kind of stuff.
So that was was that like 13 and like 15 years old, I guess. I was around 15.
What's the year? Are you old?
Yeah, we're 2.5 years apart.
And
okay,
your cousin Alex is Alex of Chain of Strength.
Chain of Strength.
Yeah, that's the basis of Chain of Strength.
Music family. It's crazy. Chain of Strength. A million bands.
Yeah. So we had roots. We had family that was part of the early '80s hardcore scene, I guess, and we didn't really know until we figured it out.
Yeah.
We were discovering the same thing. I think most kids at that age were. That was when the film Suburbia came out.
Yeah.
So we got introduced to punk rock by like a punk rocker that was straight out of Suburbia, that was walking down the street, that was part of the Sick Boys gang.
Crazy.
With a mohawk, walking by at 2 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
And he gave my brother a tape and was like, "Hey kid, check this out." And then we listened, and somehow, I want to say we had to been like, I was like around 14, 15. So about 3 years later, we started Voodoo Glow Skulls, and we covered that song, like the Descendants song.
Oh shit!
And then that ended up being on our first recording. That was like a boot that ended up being like a bootleg like a comp CD of us.
So Voodoo Glow Skulls was your first band? Like that was the first name? That was.
Well, that was the first, I guess, band that did anything. I mean, we had like little bands that like play backyard parties at the most, and maybe don't put out like a demo or anything. Sure. But our first real, I guess, real band that like actually did real shows and played recordings was Voodoo Glow Skulls.
Yeah. Wow. What was it like growing up in your household? Like what was it like? Especially like even how it was with weed. Like was weed around? Like what was your household like? It seems like you guys are pretty close.
Weed. Well.
Like how was the relationship with your parents and things?
Well, my parents, they were.
We got busted with weed.
Yeah, they were pretty Catholic. Our parents were pretty
without weed. We'll tell you the story.
Yeah, our parents were pretty straightforward conservative Catholics.
Okay.
Mexican family.
And kind of naive though when it came to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the way I started smoking weed is I came home in the 5th grade and walked up to the front porch, and my oldest brother Frank, who used to sing for the band, and his friend were standing on the front porch, and they had a pack of Marlboro Red cigarettes in their hands, but it was full of joints, and they were smoking. And of course, I didn't know what it was at the time. And he said, "Here, put this in your mouth," right? And he said, "Suck in," and I did, and I coughed. And he said, "Now you can't tell Mom because you did it too." And then after that, we would get weed from the guy that was smoking with my brother that day. We had a friend from Trinidad that lived across the street from him, and his parents were gone all day, and it was just him and his little brother at the house all day. So we would go there after school and wait for the guy to bring the weed, and we would sit at Salmon's house in all afternoon and just get high.
That was the beginning of the quest for herb. Like from then on, it doesn't stop until
we were listening to metal albums. And we would
listen to Manowar,
and we would write lyrics, like metal lyrics. And
like I remember, we would listen to this one Manowar album that had like a 16-minute long like bass solo on it, and we would. I'm sure it was dirt weed. Well, I don't even know what kind of. Who knows, right?
Yeah, brick pack.
Yeah, like red hair. We would smoke some backyard boogie, and we would. It was our first time getting high, and I remember thinking like we were like it felt like we were like on shrooms to us, like we were now. You know what I mean? It was like we were like thought we were we were seeing visions in the front yard, and then like listening to heavy metal music, and we were pretty young.
Our parents would leave for the weekends a lot, and they would leave our older brother in charge. So I'd get home a lot from school on a Friday, and I'd come home, and there'd be just bottles all over the table already. Dudes just getting high, you know what I mean? Like smoking weed. And my brother would be like, "Okay, the kegs are on the way." He would put me, Eddie, and our original drummer Jerry at the gate and say, "You guys are going to charge people $3 to get in. You hand them a joint with that $3 and a red cup." And that's what we would do. And my parents would be gone, and that was our weekends, with our older brother at our house.
That's amazing.
And eventually that turned into a band playing those kind of parties. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much how it started. You know what I mean? I first smoked with them at a Motley Crue concert. The Motley Crue Shout Out the Devil tour.
Wow.
I want to say like 1984.
Where was that at?
At the Orange Pavilion in San Bernardino. And this is my second concert. My first concert was Kiss and Motley Crue.
What?
At Irvine Meadows.
Wow.
But I don't remember smoking that. I was like 12 years old. I think my brother was still a little bit protective. And then the next concert, though, was maybe that next year and a half or whatever when they put out the next album. And I smoked a dipper as a Sherm or whatever, and I had no idea. I was a kid. I got high, and I remember missing most of the show, kind of like standing by the merch area, like seeing them, but kind of scared of the crowd and scared. I was high on Sherm. First time I smoked was a dipper, that didn't know what it was, and they went to the front row or to the pit area or whatever. Kind of left me, But that was my first time, and then I kind of did, kind of off and on. But I didn't smoke as much as these guys. Not until we toured late, like I think the mid '90s when we started going to Europe and going to Amsterdam. That's kind of when I got back into it again, I guess you could say.
Oh, yeah,
so,
the first time.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say the first time in Amsterdam was ridiculous because we had never been there. And
I hadn't smoked in years because I had sworn it off.
We get there
for a while.
We get there and we just go crazy. We get there and we play the first show and everyone just goes straight to the cafes and just buys a shitload of weed. And everyone comes back to the bus just with shitloads of weed. And then we play the show.
Imagine back then, you can't get it really anywhere.
And
we were texting having to call your friend in the middle of the night or whatever it was back then.
And we played the show, right? And the next show's in Germany. And the bus driver goes, we're going to cross the border tonight. So you guys be careful with the weed, right? You guys might want to get rid of it, actually, I think is what he said. And we got scared, so we had him pull over, and we dumped a bunch of weed. You know, everyone, like I said, everyone had bought a bunch of weed, and then we smoked a bunch, got all super high, played the show, got all super high again. He warned us we smoked as much weed as we could, you know, before we crossed over the German border. We told him before we get to the border, pull over so we can get rid of it, right? So we're just smoking a gang of it as much as we could. He pulls over, we get rid of it, and we keep driving. And, you know, a few hours go by, and, like, we go up and go, hey, man, like, when are we going to get to the border? And he's like, we've been in Germany for a while now. And turns out there was no checkpoint. No anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we ended up getting rid of everything. You know,
For no reason.
For no reason.
Yeah. Yeah, Germany can be scary, though, man.
Oh, absolutely. Bavaria is not tolerant at all.
No?
No. At all.
Did you have an issue?
We got pulled over once, and I'm not going to rat anyone out, but they had to eat something that wasn't weed.
Oh,
and like
wow.
a lot of it.
Oh, wow.
What, like a butthole or something?
Yeah, and he was just like, ah! Like going crazy the whole rest of the drive. It was pretty funny.
You said you'd sworn off weed.
Well, we got busted. Back then, we got busted. Like when we first started to even dabble with it, like we were saying, like 13 to 15, we got busted without weed. We got busted for supposedly smoking weed because a kid ratted on my little brother or something like in junior high, and because of that, we got all pulled out of our own schools because this kid ratted on my brother who was looking for weed, like in 6th grade or something. Wow. So he opens his mouth and everyone else gets pulled out of their class in their own separate school. I was 2 grades above him. My brother Frank was in high school, and we all get pulled out of classes from in different schools. Well, Frank was in a different school because we had smoked weed before. No one had anything. So that was our first time. That was like we got outed like super early,
right out of the gate.
And so I was kind of scared off for a long time. My parents scared me for years until later on. I mean, I dabbled in it, I'm sure, here and there, but I didn't really get back into it till like turning in like the late 90s or something.
Right.
Going to Europe and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I had to go to like those drug correction classes.
Oh, wow. What were those like? What were you?
It was just full of a bunch of other stoners that would just go get high together on the break.
Really?
Yeah, and all it was like, you know, it was just like, oh shit, I just gained that many more connects. You know what I mean?
So
brilliant. Everyone now.
Tell us about that process. So you got busted, and then you went, like, did you have to go to a court and like a judge in front of all that kind of stuff, or how did it work?
I don't quite remember. I just
think it
remember
was a school. I think it was.
Yeah,
it was a principal, and like they make you know, hey, you should put your kid in these classes.
Right.
I just remember like my mom having to drive me like over by where his house is now, by this Target, by his house, and I would go in there, and it was like a class, and we would have. I don't even remember how long it was, or anything. It's like very vague. You know, I was young, and my memory's not that good. You know, so, but it was. Like I said, you know, it was kind of funny because that's all it was they tell you, you know, how bad drugs were and how bad smoking weed was and all, you know, and at the same time, they'd give us these breaks and everyone would just go out there and get high and then come back into class.
Yeah.
Then after class, I'd notice, you know, people would, oh yeah, let's go to my house and then go get high at their house, you know, at each other's houses. And
How did okay, I want to know how'd you get the name Voodoo Glow Skulls? How did that come to be?
A friend of ours, our childhood friend, JR Fred Thompson, just a homie, came home from a date at Disneyland one day and came home with like a skull necklace thing, like it was like a kind of like a Hot Wheels packaging, you know what I mean? And
we were sitting at his house getting high.
Yeah, getting high once again. And he was like, "Why don't you guys call yourself Voodoo Glow Skulls, and he had a packaging of a Voodoo Glow Skull that you used to be able to buy at the Pirates of the Caribbean store when you like get off the ride.
Disneyland.
Yeah.
And there was a store there where you'd be able to buy like stuff that was kind of related to that type of thing, like kind of piratey themes and all that stuff. And it was like a white kind of like skull necklace, like kind of like a little porcelain thing that used to glow with like a black choker.
Nice.
And it was a Voodoo Glow Skull, and the packaging said like like creepy, scary, all that stuff. And we just thought it would be kind of a cool kind of an ambiguous name, like you don't know. Like you don't know what it's gonna be. It sounds kind of metal or punk or or like psychedelic. Could be ska. Could be something else, right? So yeah, we just thought it was cool. And I think back then we were kind of into the LA, like the Fishbone and like Red Hot Chili, like the Chili Peppers, Jane's Addiction. Yeah, that was like a kind of like psychedelic, like kind of like late '80s, early '90s thing going on.
Kind of anything goes.
So we were kind of anything goes band, like learning. And we were young, so we were trying to be like those three bands exactly. If you ask me, we were. That was a trifecta, like in 1986, 87. Was the Chili Peppers, Fishbone,
Yeah.
and the Red Hots, or what, So we were Jane's. I mean, we were trying to be like those bands, I guess. Cool. And then punk rock was also coming into play too, of course, or was there.
And then how'd the ska kind of stuff get in? Then it's also like the kind of like the Mexican culture sort of influence too. How did all that sort of come together?
Well,
the two-tone era.
Yeah, the two-tone era had a lot to do with it because growing up as kids, we listened to a lot of different types of music, and our oldest brother, went through his phases, and one of them was the two-tone stuff.
He was a mod.
He went from like British metal to like bands like the Jam and the Specials and Madness, and you know what I mean?
He actually bought like a Vespa scooter and went through the whole nine.
Yeah.
So we would get those LPs, and we were 12, 13, 14 years old.
We were
and
still into metal, but we would still listen to that stuff.
Yeah.
Wherever Frank would have, we would still dip into his stuff. You know what I mean? And then later on, Fishbone came into play, and that was definitely another big part of our influence.
They led the way for multi-genre.
I think that was the catalyst to us actually going, okay, we're going to get horns.
And we wanted to
how do we seek out a sax player and a trumpet and a trombone? Like we were way into them. And
like I was into
that's our main ska influence, I think.
I was into like punk and like still the metal, of course, that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And then also like all the thrash stuff that was going, like Anthrax and like Suicidal and like fucking Slayer and all those bands. So we kind of were like, okay, let's take kind of like what Fishbone and the Specials kind of do, what we like out of that, mix it with kind of like Iron Maiden and Priest that we grew up with.
We just picked the elements that we liked.
Throw in some punk and make it, in a sense, almost like Fishbone, but let's try and do it faster and
Fast
heavier.
as fuck.
Yeah.
It's not that it's all about just being fast and playing fast, because Voodoo is much more than just that.
But I think at that age,
but at that age,
we
just wanted to be, I guess wanted to be a little more aggressive, a little heavier, They have different influence. They have more soul influences.
Yeah,
of course,
well, you guys
grew up with. We grew up with different influences.
We just thought like some of the traditional stuff is cool, but like the sameness of like traditional ska. I mean, no disrespect, but like it's kind of samey after a while. So we figured, let's take the best rhythms of that. Let's take the coolness of Iron Maiden or like metal that we like the maybe lead, like guitar leads or like heavy drums, and
the galloping,
galloping stuff, and then let's take the best elements of punk rock that we like, or like the melody of punk. We just always kind of. We're just influenced by a lot of stuff.
The breakdowns of thrash, Like,
and then where were you guys like jamming? You guys like parents' basement kind of thing?
I actually
we don't have basements.
I don't know where you come from, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we
Canada.
The best place.
Yeah, it's all right.
No,
we love.
You guys came to my house that one time.
Yeah, Canada.
Yeah, you were the Voodoo Man.
Yeah, we came where?
Yeah, we ate at your pad.
To my house.
Yeah, and you were the Voodoo Man. You were the Voodoo Man that night.
I was the Voodoo Man with you guys that one night.
Oh yeah, you were the Voodoo Man, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hamilton, Ontario.
Get you to say house. I think that's what
House.
You didn't say hoose. You said house.
I live in a house.
I don't know what he was trying to do.
I don't know. Did I say it Canadian?
I don't know what he was trying to do.
Oh.
No,
I don't think
I didn't say anything. I just asked what he said.
I told Ben once that the Mexicans and Canadians both say A, but they go like, "Hey, how's it going, A?" And we go, "What's up, A?"
No, we don't say, "Hey, how?" Fuck. When are you gonna learn?
We say A too.
We don't say, "How you going, eh?" Like we say like, "Oh, that's a nice." No, we would
nice,
say,
eh?
we'd say like, "It's warm out,
Like,
eh?" It's warm out, eh? Like the way Americans say, "Huh?" A lot of Americans go like, "It's hot out, huh?"
I'd say like, "It's warm out."
I know. Yeah, see, it's kind of like Mexicans.
Well, you know, when Americans are all like, "Man, she."
We say,
What do you think about the temperature? You know, I don't know.
That's a good impression of Americans.
Out here, it's more like, "What's up, babe?"
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. What's up, A?
Yeah.
Stupid.
Stupid. You're not. I'm not stupid. You're stupid. Canadian.
When Bubba's not here, all of a sudden it's open game to pick on the Canadian. I got to get him back. Get better, Bubba. I need another Canadian here. I'll sick Brent on you.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. You don't have much backing right now.
So did you guys
You're
start-
all alone. You're all alone, surrounded.
Yeah. Whatever. Did you guys start playing it back? Like, what was the first shows like? What were the as Voodoo's like? How did
First
that
shows, it was
Yeah.
just backyard parties in front of our our 50 to 100 friends. I guess we
Yeah.
would just
In living rooms.
the first one was a living room with some windows getting smashed and like some drywall getting smashed. Like young high school kids slam dancing in the house.
Yeah.
Those are our first shows. Our first dozen shows were that, and then we graduated. We graduated to the local pizzeria that did punk rock shows, Spanky's Cafe.
Yeah.
And then that's the
legendary.
first. Yeah, there was like the start of like the club that were like I think no doubt kind of sort of made their comeback there. They were already like a local band who had already established themselves like in the LA scene and like the Orange County scene. But I think Spanky's in like 1988 was really where bands really got to hone their thing. Like they would come to Riverside and play.
People from LA would go to Riverside all the time.
Yeah, and
Like-
Spanky's became a thing that was a precursor to the Showcase Theater in Corona, which was the same owner who, when he moved to Corona.
People from Hollywood would drive to Corona for those shows or drive to Riverside for those
Yeah.
Spanky shows.
So the
those
Spanky
shows were
shows-
so legendary, so wild. Like
Yeah.
those venues, man, you could do anything, man. I'm gonna dive out of this balcony and grab on the lights.
So
and
yeah,
fall. Dude, it was just chaos.
So the Showcase Theater was the club that came after Spanky's, which is our first real club.
Yeah, the owner didn't know what was up. Like on his first club, he had like rehearsal spaces, and we'd be rehearsing, and he would come in from his office while we were practicing and go, "Hey guys, this manager called me from this band called the Toy Dolls. They want to play the club. And
Do you know who they are?
Do you know who they are?" And we'd be like, "Yeah." I told him no. We're like, call him back. Are you sure? Yeah, call him back. So the guy was kind of naive to that. So he started booking, he got hip and started booking all these bands from overseas,
all these touring bands.
And so we got to start playing with all these cool bands, that would come through and not only play with them, but go see them too. Like we got to see like all the cool straight edge hardcore band, Gorilla Biscuits, Instead,
Agnostic Front,
Front, all these bands.
Sick of It All came through. That was like one of the big ones for me. The Sick of It All tour came on the Blood, Sweat, and
No Tears.
Yeah, Blood, Sweat, and No Tears album, their first real record. And it was insane to see that. Like the first seeing bands from New York and my small town that's an hour away from LA that people don't want to drive to from LA.
Yeah.
And bands from New York are playing there because it's better than the LA scene back then.
Absolutely.
There's a real scene. So we would get, those bands, and so we kind of cut our teeth watching bands that were touring, and at the same time, we'd play there and kind of learn the ropes, I guess you could say, and watch what bands do, and then that turned into us getting offered a Mighty Mighty Bosstones tour in 1994. We used to we opened up a record store too, like an independent punk rock store, and
Cheap Guy Music.
We got a phone call to my store at the time, and it was the Bosstones, like a booking agent asked if we booked the Voodoo Glow Skulls, and it's kind of snowballed from there. We got some attention from Dr. Strange Records, like an independent little label that had put out the the first Guttermouth album and the first Face to Face record.
Yeah.
And
Kind of legendary.
And then he offered us the same deal, like right around the same 6 months, I think. He's like, you want us to put out your first 7-inch and then your first LP to follow. And then we did, and that was the Who Is This record, and that garnered some attention because we sold 10,000 like right off the bat.
Wow.
Pretty quick, like surprising. But I think all three of those bands we're starting to do that.
Hot, man. Yeah. I remember that was like an explosion.
Yeah, it was like a trifecta,
its
like
own
on Doctor
scene.
Strange Records, a little
Yeah.
scene. And then that first album got us the attention of an employee of Epitaph Records. And then he would play our first album, like in the bullpen, which is like the Epitaph Records, like the main little office where like the A&R types would sit with like Brett Gurewitz, the president, and all that stuff.
At the same time,
and
Tim
they would
from Rancid was telling Brett kind of about us, but he didn't know that it was the band that the intern was playing every day in the office.
Oh, wow.
So they were getting it from both sides because we just had a new record out that was kind of doing pretty good. And
That's dope.
Then we got a phone call from Brett from Bad Religion, man, and said, "Hey, is this where the Voodoo Glow Skulls are?" It was at a record store.
Eddie had a record store at the time called Cheap Guy Music that he had. He had a few different locations. Like we moved like 3 times.
Something like that. We would
Pretty
have-
legendary.
But we had a record store where we would do shows in the back.
Yeah.
And we would do like all the hardcore shows and like
Legendary hardcore
it was
shows.
really cool. Yeah, a lot
we did
of
some
cool shit.
stuff. We
went
did
down.
like a Lagwagon show, like a Propaganda show. All when
Strung
those
Out.
bands are doing their first
the fat,
tours.
the first Fat Bit Records bands would come and play for their first records at our store. Propaganda came and
Yeah, yeah.
played.
I love fucking
That might have been
Propaganda.
like the first U.S. tour, like that kind of stuff. Like
Wow.
the
Yeah, yeah.
first. I mean, if they played our small record store, that's saying like they were.
What was the party culture like back then? Like around those scenes and stuff like that?
The backyard
Was a lot of
party
drinking?
scene was everything, especially on the West Coast.
Oh, where we
Yeah.
we'd get these kids whose parents owned ranches and stuff like that.
There's a lot of land out there.
Yeah, and they would
Yeah,
flyer the
Inland
fuck out
Empire.
of their backyard parties, and they would get literally, like 1,000 people.
I
in
mean,
their
we would play these
backyard.
legendary.
Yeah.
We played these legendary parties called the Pig Fests.
I was at
Yeah.
Pigfest too. Remember the cops started shooting rubber bullets at everybody?
Exactly. Well,
I delivered. I worked at a screen printing shop. I was young, and I was
You
making their
delivered shirts.
T-shirts, and I delivered your shirts to that show.
and the show gets shut down
Yeah.
right when you show up.
Oh yeah, I remember. The
Yeah.
cops were shooting rubber bullets in the crowd.
They were shooting rubber
I was all
bullets.
what?
They, like,
what?
made-
Little VW bug, like
Yeah. Yeah, they
I was
played-
trying to leave, like
Yeah, they pepper sprayed the whole crowd.
Crazy,
and-
yeah.
What?
It was like a riot.
It was like a riot. There was a
Rule
punk
62
rock show.
played.
Yep. It was that was
Remember
Pig.
who played?
That was Pigfest too. That kind of
Yeah.
it kind of didn't happen
Yeah,
because of all that. But
Who would have played that?
Pigfest 1
it was like whoever was around like the mid '90s. It was like it was Guttermouth, the
Face
Glow
to
Skulls,
Face.
DI, Face to Face. Like
Wow.
kind of like Orange
the
County
first
Punk.
one. The first
Yeah, yeah.
one. The first one was a little bit. I think it was the first one was just us and Guttermouth and some other local bands, and that was in this place called Smalleyville, which
And it was just like a backyard
It
party.
was this guy who had a couple sons, and they had multiple buildings and bars, and they owned all kinds of shit. They owned a park, and that's where Pigfest 2 was in the park they owned.
dude.
And it's by the Prado Dam, which is like a big area out here. The first one was at the other brother's house, which they called Smalleyville, which basically was the Tweaker brother. And he had like 4 houses on this property, and they were just all tweakers living in it. But the one brother went to the Tweakers brother's house and put a flatbed truck in between 2 of the houses,
Wow.
put kegs in one of the houses, and set it up like party style, festival style. And we played in between these 2 houses on a flatbed.
You just went to
And
town,
people
man.
were on the roofs of both houses, partying through all that on the whole property. That was the first Pig Fest.
So I think
Wow.
that like where we're from, since there's more land and more space, there was a lot of big parties. There were like giant
And it
backyard
was rural,
parties.
so cops would.
There'd be 1,000 people watching punk rock bands in a backyard with a bunch of land and a bonfire and a bunch of kegs and
Wow.
one home on the land
And-
or something like that.
all through the Inland Empire, all through the high desert.
Yeah.
There was a huge scene, and all the raddest bands, and people people drove far to go to
Wow.
Inland Empire shows, even all the way out like into the high desert, like
Yeah.
out to Victorville and all that. I remember
Yeah.
driving out there to the Fly Theater or
Which
whatever.
is
to go
kind of
see all these
weird
bands.
now. I mean, it's kind of ironic now. You get You get Coachella is like the biggest festival in the world,
And it's out in the desert.
It's in Indio. It's
Yeah.
like the escapism of it. You know, you go
Yeah, that guy grew
like
up with
it
it.
used to be not cool to drive to Riverside, and it still isn't cool for I guess if you're in like in the heart of Hollywood or something. But people now it's cool to
It's hip
drive
to go there.
It's cool to drive to
Yeah.
IE to the Inland Empire to
Yeah.
see a show.
Yeah, that guy.
Yep.
He kind
Yep.
of. Our oldest brother threw a festival in a park, in a local park,
Yep.
and had a bunch of bands play it. And the guy kind of watched my brother kind of put together like a festival.
Oh wow.
So then they did a second one together, kind of. And then that guy just kept on. He got a hold of. He went to the university and got like a room, like a hall that the university rent out for weddings and stuff like that. And he got them to let him start doing shows there. And that's where he kind of got his team together that kind of does Coachella now.
Wow.
That started Coachella, let's say. Now I'm sure it's morphed into a whole different
Sure.
thing. A lot of the same people are still working it, but it's grown into such a beast that,
But the guy that
Yeah.
we were his first club show, his first flyered like punk rock show.
Wow.
And that guy, he's the main booker at Coachella. He's one of the owners
he
of it.
does Stagecoach, and those are his babies. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
crazy.
So it's interesting how that happens, man. He started off in the small scene,
Yeah.
doing
Punk-
that, and then
doing punk
raves,
shows.
and then he graduated
yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Those backyard parties were like raves, kind of.
Cut his teeth with punk shows.
Yeah. Yeah. The best shit always does, man. The best shit,
yeah.
like the biggest shit, like it usually, like even art, everything like
Yeah.
that. There's always like this.
Oh yeah, he used to be a hardcore
Skateboarding
kid.
or like punk or like really solid rock and roll. It usually comes from, you know what I mean, on
it's
some
true.
level.
But it is true. The guy that does Coachella and Stagecoach used to be a hardcore kid. He used to
Yeah.
Pretty rad.
or at least comes from that. You know?
Right.
That
Yeah.
comes from the
So-
punk scene. He cut his teeth, doing punk shows, and he did the work. He
Same,
Well,
same with
punk's
the
like-
Golden Boys guys. That started off,
Oh, yeah,
some of the same people.
Punk and hardcore in its purest forms are like the anthem of the counter thinkers, like or like like the people like who are the critical thinkers, I should
Yeah.
say.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's really where it comes from. So it makes a lot of sense to me that people kind of grow up into being, or I guess grow up because everybody kind of gets into it as a kid, but you grow up into being like more creative, and it takes a lot of creativity to be like even. To be successful, like even on a level like Coachella, like there's a lot of people who try to do festivals, but it takes the really right creative mind that's kind of also has the business sense to really make that work. Like whether that's creativity within like,
and you have to think outside of the box type of thinking.
let me
100%.
give you an example
Yeah.
of Bill, the guy that created Coachella and Stagecoach. When I was a kid, I used to hang out with him quite a bit. On one occasion, they said, they gave us a call and said, hey, meet us at this house. And we showed up. It was a bunch of younger skaters. We jump in the back of a truck. We go up into the hills of this construction site. All of a sudden, we're loading all this plywood into the back of these trucks. Drive it down to another house, and then they start building the ramp. I had no idea. We just took in a bunch of wood from a construction site to build ramps. You know what I mean? And then on another occasion, he's like, okay, meet us at this location. So we show up at this warehouse by where all these auto body shops are and stuff like that. And he's got kegs, and he's got a DJ. And we're charging at the door, and he so he charges all these people. You know what I mean? He has these kegs, makes a bunch of money, and around 10 o'clock, he's like, all right, we're out of here, dude, pack up. And we take off, and he fucking gets on the phone and goes, hey, there's a party going on or whatever. And fucking turns out that it was just a warehouse he fucking broke into.
Yeah.
And we're already gone with the money down the street. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
shit like that. You know what I mean? When we were young kids, Like,
Wow.
Like really cutting his teeth with shit like that, Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
Another example in that circle of friends, which was kind of funny, is we show up to this other party, and they had broken into an abandoned house that someone was trying to rent or something, 2-story house. Same thing. Got a couple kegs, charged at the door, and then after they had X amount of money, just bounce.
Wow.
Later. Yeah,
Wow.
crazy shit. Those guys, they were doing, what they had to do, basically, just to.
But it seems like all of you guys like that seems like I mean, the more I kind of learn about the way you guys actually grew up, like we saw Voodoo Glow Skulls from the peripherals, like just like this fucking massive beast of a band, and it's interesting. But I think that's kind of also kind of stems from just you guys kind of being in this area, growing up in this area. Like there's a lot of like and I don't want to sound like negative because I love this area, but like you go around and you see a lot of people trying to be famous, and you see a lot of people not succeeding at it.
Right.
And so what would that create? You're going to create some sort of, well, I guess what you guys created, like I'm having a hard time articulating, but the culture that's here and the counterculture that you guys have all created is very like the yin and the yang to the existence of the area in a lot of ways. Do you know what I mean?
My point with
Totally
Bill
makes
and those
sense.
my point with Bill and those guys though is
kind of like anti-Hollywood, but it is.
they kind of did.
But it's
what-
also a little bit like,
It's also a little bit. It,
little bit
It has
Hollywood.
to coexist. You know. You have to be part of it.
yeah,
In some
And-
ways. Like,
yeah,
does that make sense?
100%.
And Voodoo's a trip to me because the whole backyard scene and all that,
Mm-hmm.
like Voodoo went from the backyard scene to playing with like Incubus. Like that's insane.
Yeah.
Like how do you graduate from the backyard to that?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And how was that? What's that like? You know, what does that feel like? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're on the radio from the backyard scene. Like
That's fucking cool.
that's very California.
It just happened.
Yeah,
It's a California thing to happen.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't really. It was meant. I mean, it happened, but it seems like that kind of stuff wasn't meant to happen. We had just a taste of it too. We weren't even. You know, I mean, we got signed and kind of got the love for those few years. You know what I mean? And I mean, I'm proud of the records, and it. I mean, I think it's. I mean, I'm proud of it, and I think we deserve what we got to that at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we worked hard. But still, it seemed like it was like, do we belong there? Even getting played on K-Rock for 16, like we charted on the biggest rock station in the world for 16 weeks here, and it kind of didn't do much except for help us get played for 16 weeks. It didn't feel like it helped us much else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We still ended up being like an underground ska punk band or whatever.
Right.
But it was cool to be a part of it for a minute, to be like, oh, why is it those people looking at me? Oh, it's like, yeah, they know the song. They heard it, they hear the song, and then they're like, that's the dude in the band. For just, we got a taste of that only. You know, that was only like felt like it was for a season. You know what I mean? It felt quick. You know what I mean? And then the rest was just like, oh, keep your integrity and be playing your, you know. We felt like we mostly kept a lot of our integrity intact. Somehow, still, even with being, you know, back then was like the age when people cried sellout. That doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
You never hear that anymore because it's not an issue to sign to a major label, because even though they exist, that doesn't really exist anymore. Now it's like a feeding frenzy. People are just
Voodoo always kind of ignored that sellout thing, and I think it's because you guys came from metal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That didn't exist because Voodoo's in TV commercials.
Yeah.
Voodoo's on TV,
and
on
you know,
Netflix.
you're exactly
on
right.
The
And that's
Luchador.
you're one of the first people to
wrestling
actually
show.
to bring. I mean, to make that point, you ended up singing in the band, which makes sense. It makes
Hey-o.
sense. It makes sense that you get it though.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way I at least personally always felt about it. It's like, well, we're gonna go up there and play with these punk rockers. That I feel like I'm part of it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very much DIY. We came from that. You know, no one could deny that. But when a lot of these guys were talking shit about stuff that we love, I like big shows.
Who doesn't want to
Not
play
that
on
our
a big
show is-
stage and just
not that our show isn't the most extravagant, big like production, but we definitely shoot for the stars, even on a small level.
Oh, yeah.
We want to have a show for people. We want to have something, even a backdrop, some like an intro, like a mascot, something extra, something fun. You know,
different things.
That's what we grew up watching, so that's what we want to create. That's what we do.
So
Absolutely.
we always had that air about us, to be fair, where it's like, well, we kind of don't give a fuck about the politics,
I feel like-
about
Yeah.
your scene so
I
much.
feel like if Voodoo could, we would have a show like Iron Maiden.
yeah. Oh, if
You know what I mean? If we had the budget, we would.
How did the voodoo monster, like what's his name again?
Oh, that was made the Voodoo Man. That was made by the same artist that did the
made
Batman
by
mask, right?
part of the team for this guy that was on the Rick Baker team.
He worked on Alien. He worked on Batman.
He worked on Planet of the Apes and Batman.
Planet of the Apes.
And he just made us the
local guy from where we live, and he made the Voodoo Man mask for us. You know, we commissioned him to do it, and he was told
Did he come up
to
with the
it.
design? Like, because it's kind of got that Rat Fink vibe.
That was Ken Stansbury. It's a local Riverside artist that
That's direct influence from Ed Roth and all the Rat
Fink
stuff.
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
I mean, he just
kinda-
came up with it.
Yeah, that's kind of what he envisioned in his head of the band. Like,
Well,
the
he was
kind of
actually
style.
influenced by another drawing, though. That drawing was influenced by somebody else, to be fair.
Tell me if I'm wrong. You said that the album cover, the Freedom Man record, that was painted in a pool, and it's a photo of it or something like that.
Yeah, it's a big painting. It was actually a big painting. Mr. Brett ended up buying it for his office.
Oh, wow.
But it was a big painting that a guy named Ken Stansberry did, a local artist from Riverside.
Specifically for the album cover.
He did it like in a pool, like an abandoned pool.
Right.
At the Life Arts building.
Life Arts building, Riverside old building.
It's a historic building in downtown
It has a
Riverside.
recording studio. Gabe Roth has his recording studio in it, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Gabe is the guy who produced the Daptones. Sharon King.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Sharon Jones and the Daptones.
Yeah.
And he's
Amy
a
Winehouse
bass player of
record.
that band. He produced Amy Winehouse. His
He went on tour
studio.
with us.
Yeah, he actually toured as our front of house sound guy on that when we did a tour with the Offspring.
Wow.
So Gabe Roth, the guy from the Daptones who produced Amy Winehouse, the Back in Black album or whatever. He lives. He's a Riverside resident, and he's friends. He's a childhood friend of our original sax player. And when he was in NYU film school or like sound school, he had asked if he could do a tour with us to kind of like cut his teeth in sound, like live sound. And went on tour with us and did sound for us when we supported the Offspring.
That's cool.
And he ended up being the guy who produced Sharon Jones. It's crazy. I mean, he started a band with her. And,
What Offspring tour was that?
Yeah,
what
he was
Voodoo
kinda-
tour was that?
Ixnay on the Ombre tour, which I want to say is 1999.
Yeah, it was kind of the
Okay.
beginnings of all that for him. Like while he was touring with us, he was kind of talking about it a lot, how him and his friends were doing that. And,
Yeah, I think they were pressing the
Sound.
first 7
they
inches
were
out
all-
then, and like
they were all like students in New York, going to music, art school, music school
That's cool.
in New York. So that
Super cool.
that's kind of how he created that whole thing.
So
yeah, but that was the album cover was painted in the abandoned pool of the Life Arts building, which is like a pool that was built in like 1910 or 1920s or something, and it's a historic pool, like one of those scary old pools that you'd see like in like American Horror Story or something. Like it has that vibe, like old creepy
cool.
pool, and they let artists paint in the pool, like they used to let them like set up their stuff in like in the actual like empty pool and paint it.
Really cool.
And he would go there, whenever he'd feel, I guess inspired to go add more to it. He told me like years later that he would just go there after he'd party basically at 2-3 in the morning, just hammered, and just sit there and stare at it in the creepy ass pool at fucking 3 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with
That's
the
cool.
fucking spotlight on it, all creepy. And
Yeah,
just
I'm not sure if it's
add
still
to
there.
it.
I mean, the building's still there, but I wonder if the pool's is being used
That's
or
pretty
what happened to
cool.
it. But it's like an arts colony. Like there's a Gold's Gym in there now, which is weird in the basement of it.
Yeah. There's an RC track in there.
But there's an RC track in there. They used to let artists live in lofts in there. I think they still do.
There was recording studios in there.
There was recording studios. There's people that
There's
paint in there. That have their paint
Wow.
studios.
Riverside's an interesting city because, from what I understand, before Palm Springs existed, Riverside was like the hideaway for the movie stars.
Yeah,
First
it was.
closest.
There's a part of Riverside it's like the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
The houses are incredible. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
and it's beautiful. And then the whole Mission District. I mean, it's so much history.
One of the movie premieres of Gone with the Wind was held at the Fox Theater, which is like, the Fox Theater is like most Fox theaters in most downtowns. The big, nice historic theater, and the Mission Inn, the famous hotel there is like a famous kind of like Mission style hotel.
Every president
That-
ever stayed there.
Yeah, there's been almost every president has stayed there. I believe a couple of American presidents. One was married there or had his honeymoon there, like Ford
Right.
or Nixon or somebody like that. So yeah, there's definitely some history there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So hold on, I got to hop in here for a sec. I got to know. So how did you guys start to decide, or how did you guys decide to get into cannabis, like as a living, as well as being musicians and stuff like that?
Mostly because of our friend brought us in. Our friend Steve, who owns this shop and owns this lifestyle brand, sponsored the band. He started sponsoring me about 10 years ago with the shirts. Basically, he'd send me a bunch of like swag, hats and shirts and all that stuff. I'd wear stuff on the road, and then little did I know that on the down low he was doing his other business. You know what I mean? Which then I guess it wasn't legal, or was there was dispensaries, but it was strictly medical, and that was the beginnings of all that. And he was one of the guys that fought his way through it all. You know what I mean? And,
so you guys felt like a kinship to him, to kind of be like,
and then
we want to do this with you, we want to back you up,
and then to be honest,
he was already established in it actually, and he kind of asked me one day, to come in as a vendor, and I started coming around the shop, and then
And it started with a Voodoo Glow Skulls strain of weed. Do you remember?
Yeah. I started
Voodoo OG.
the Voodoo OG and the Voodoo Monster, which
Yeah.
was a sativa, and then we did that, and then after a while, we started getting super busy, or his shop started getting super busy, so he asked me if I wanted to just come in house and start working there.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And he brought me in, and I've been there ever since.
Oh, amazing. And so you guys are super active again. You're touring a lot, right? You know, I saw you guys last summer in Hamilton, Ontario, where I'm from, and you guys are constantly busy, and I know all kind of stuff. And you guys have music on coming. It's already out.
We're working on a new record.
You're working on a new record.
We have a lot of it done.
Yeah, we've been slowly but surely working on a new record. I mean, things changed a lot, of course, with the band lineup, and we honestly didn't know if we were going to be a band, you know. But all life happens in a weird way, and we fell into working with our friend at I mean, for our friend's company right when our brother retired from the band. And right when we thought we weren't going to have a band, Ephraim offered to step in, and it changed things for the band. And
I've heard it. It sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah,
It's great.
in a positive way. I mean, most people would think you'd be done, you know, when the original singer steps away after 30 years or like 29 years. But we fulfilled some commitments, and it went real well. And we kind of can't get away from the band as well, which we don't want to, of course. But it's a weird thing, you know. It's like, I have to admit, we thought it was going to be a hard sell, I guess I should say. But, you know, you lose a lead singer of a band that people are used to hearing.
Yeah.
But
F, and I'll say this as my homie, like F, like even friends at home are like, you know, like F, like I remember having to be like, Ephraim's, you know, taking over for like the Voodoos. He's going to start singing Voodoos. And I was like, my one buddy homie, he plays this band Monster Truck, and he's like, well, that makes sense actually. And I was like, yeah, it does.
Cool.
Yeah, that's,
you know what I mean?
That's the one thing
That's cool.
that makes sense. And I mean, thankfully was in our favor. Is like people. I mean, most of the attitude was like, well, I can't think of a better person that you guys would get. Like I mean, the situation is unfortunate and it bumps some people out. I'm sure. I mean, come on. Yeah. How do you look at your fans in the face and tell? You know, it's a hard thing to do, but which has nothing to do with the rest of the band, you know. I mean, someone's decision. I mean, we can't make someone's decision for them. Yeah. So that being said, we, you know, it changed things in a positive way, and things have been going real well, and we're just kind of taking it as it comes. You know, we had a record that was mostly or partially written with an old lineup. So it put us in a weird place where we have to like kind of pick up the pieces, so to speak, and figure out what. So that's where we're at now. Is like we've done a lot of the. We've continued to work on the record with Ephraim, and then now we're at the point to where I think we want to write some songs as this band now, because we kind of picked up the pieces of an old record that I mostly wrote, to be fair. I mean, there are a lot of my songs, but still, you know, we need to go back and basically write more songs. I mean, with this lineup, and then add to it.
And you're probably excited. It's exciting creatively. You get like sometimes when you get something thrown into the mix, and it's like, oh, this is really working. You kind of want to take, what's this guy going to do with these older ideas and things like that.
And we've been playing a couple new songs live every night.
Yeah.
We're getting the feel now of each other.
Now we have a different lineup. So, and we've covered a lot of ground now with this lineup. You know, we've been a lot of places with that from
all over the world.
And now we've gotten used to this lineup. So we've kind of decided, well, let's just pick and choose the best of what we've already got with the last lineup out on the recording side of things.
Sure. What's up next? What's going on next?
Well, we've been slowly working on some music, you know. But yeah, I think what we were talking about is that, and we're playing new songs live, which we wanted to get back to just being a band and plays new songs live before they record them even, or before you hear them. Like kind of old school, you know what I mean? Instead of putting out something that then hearing it live. We've been playing a few new songs and kind of adding new songs slowly but surely, just to work them out live, to where take the opposite approach where you used to see a band and then you couldn't wait to hear those songs recorded.
Yeah.
Because you saw them live for a few years, you know?
Yeah.
So we're just taking that approach, kind of having fun with it. The next thing we have is June 1st, Camp Anarchy in Thornville, Ohio. Giant 3-day punk rock fest. Rancid, Bad Religion, The Damned, Sick of It All, Voodoo Glow Skulls. We're on June 1st. Death by Stereo playing
Play the next day?
For the Friday, the May 31st. We're on the June 1st, the Saturday. Is that right? Or are you on the next day?
We're on the next day.
Oh, you're on the last day?
I think we're on the day with the Offspring, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So guys, and so we're gonna wrap this up because I know you guys got to get going. Thank you so much for making the trip out here.
Thanks
where
for
can we
having us.
find where can we find Explosive online?
Explosive Online?
Yeah.
Just look up Explosive International.
Explosive International.
Yep.
And then where do we find the West Side? What's the West Side Collect?
Westside Collective.
Collective, sorry.
At Instagram. At
Yeah.
Instagram, Westside CLLCTV. You could find us on Weed Maps and most of the.
What about
Yeah.
what about
most
the band?
of the resources.
The West Side one's actually westside.cl.
Okay.
CLLCTV, sorry.
Okay. Cool. And then where's
The band?
How do we the band?
The band is at Glow Skulls on Twitter, Voodoo Glow Skulls official.com on for the official website, Voodoo Glow Skulls on Instagram. And then we also have a Facebook.
Awesome.
See you all in Ohio at Camp Anarchy.
Yeah,
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, that's
Thanks so
what I-
much. And
Thanks,
I'm
thanks,
gonna try
thanks
one
for
of
letting me
these.
be in the band.
And
We're gonna do
and then we'll also be on tour with the Reverend Horton Heat. We'll be supporting the Reverend. We can't announce just yet, but we're doing
It's coming.
We're doing the other part of the country.
You gonna try the
And Ben's gonna try the
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try this out right now. I'm gonna try. We're gonna hang out.
He's gonna try this out right now.
Explosive Brownies.
Explosive brownies. Here
Explosive
we go.
Industries Brownies, Westside Collective, Paris, California.
I am just going to stay for
Explosive
legal reasons. I am
International.
not being paid to
Voodoo,
do this.
voodoo, voodoo.
I'm just going to eat a fucking brownie. Guys, thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for
onto
having
our
us.
show and telling us how
Thanks
you
for
guys
having
got to
us.
the weeds.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Voodoo, voodoo, voodoo.
Fuck you.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
This
Thanks.
episode
Yeah.
was presented by Pot Guide and Wikileaf. Please follow ITW on Twitter and Instagram at Get Into the Weeds. You can follow Ben Rispin at Ben Rispin. You can follow Ephraim Martinez Schulz at F by Stereo. And me, Bubba Nicholson at Bubba Nicholson. ITW's theme music was written by Jacob Bergsma of My Son the Hurricane. Visit them at www.msthofficial.com. Special thanks to our friends at Puff Digital, Program Skate and Sound, and the Slide Bar in Fullerton, Orange County. Sound engineering provided by Roman Marconi at Halo Studios Hamilton. ITW was created by Ben Rispin and is produced by Master Volume.